Hello and welcome to another episode of Rugby TTL podcast. This week we are welcoming an international rugby star. We're actually going to be talking Brazilian rugby, and you'll probably be looking at our guest and wondering, he probably doesn't look too Brazilian, as we'll probably class it, but Ben Donald, you are fully capped, fully blooded Brazilian international player just off the back of the World Cup qualifiers. Ben, really appreciate your time, mate, for joining us, and if you can enlighten everyone how we've got to this journey so far.
G'day, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me onto the show, Carl. Obviously don't look too Brazilian, but yeah, my identity definitely revolves around the Brazilian sort of culture. My parents moved to Brazil when they were already in Brazil when I was born. So
Wow.
I was actually born in the UK, but I moved to Brazil when I was only a week old. And from there I stayed in Campinas, which is in the São Paulo area, until I was 13 before moving back to New Zealand, where my dad's from. So most of my life now I've spent in Brazil, which is one of the main reasons why I chose to represent Brazil on the national stage, international stage, sorry. And definitely enjoyed the experience so far of being a part of that journey to try and get to a World Cup. Unfortunately, we didn't quite make it, but it's all part of the experience, right?
Oh, what game. I watched it. I obviously watched it all the time and wrote a few articles around it, and there was moments that it could have easily gone your way, but I've got different opinions about the World Cup qualification situation, which I'm sure you have as well, but you probably don't want to put too many heads above parapets while you're still currently playing. We were actually briefly talking about this beforehand. I actually saw you play in your the week after your debut. So your second game, you obviously played at Levia, which I talk quite fondly of down here as well. So how did that call up come about for Brazil when you said we've got a game, but it's in Spain? Do you fancy coming playing two back to back? What was how did that all come about?
Yeah. It actually it all started quite a bit before that, actually, about an year and a half before I was playing in New Zealand club rugby. So it was actually, I only started playing rugby when I was 23, just turned 23. And I was playing club for Mount Maunganui Sports Club in Tauranga, New Zealand. And all of a sudden, in my second year of rugby, one of my teammates, he saw a rugby ad come up on one of the rugby agents' Facebook pages. And he said, Brazil Rugby are looking for Brazilian eligible players from New Zealand, and contact this person if you're interested. And I was like, my second year of rugby, I'm just playing for mates and playing for, the social side of it. And I thought, we'll do it. I want to go back to Brazil at some stage and experience it as an adult again. And I said, what the heck? So I got into touch with Josh Reeves, who's the director of rugby for Brazil. We hit it off from the beginning, and he was very, very keen on getting me over at some stage. And it coincided perfectly because most of my family was leaving New Zealand for other work opportunities around the world. So I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So I managed to get that move over to Brazil in November of 2022. And it was just before a tournament that we played in Paraguay. So that was that was actually my first time that I played for Brazil. It was uncapped though. So I had to wait another year for my first test matches. I came over for those games against Paraguay. We did to give you an idea of what, the budgets are like in South America, especially for tier 2 and tier 3 teams. We had to bus from São Paulo all the way to Asunción in Paraguay, which was like a 24-hour bus ride. We'd only stop for dinner or breakfast or whatever, overnighter on the bus, get there, and I think it was the next day we had our first game.
Wow.
And so we stayed there for, I think, 10 days, and during those 10 days we played 3 matches against 2 Argentinian provincial teams, and then basically a Paraguayan 15, which was an awesome experience, and it gave me my first taste of what Brazilian rugby and rugby culture is like. So that was an awesome experience that I look back on with really fond memories. It enlightened me to the realities of at rugby at this level. And then part of that deal was also that I come back and play for the Cobras in the Super Rugby Americas the following season. So that's it used to be called SLA, which is Superliga Americana de Rugby, and then it got rebranded to take on the Super Rugby Pacific sort of branding, which was great actually. And then So that kicked off in March, and we played until the end of May, beginning of June. And that was awesome. We got to travel around the whole of South America playing rugby, and the States. We had the American Raptors in the league at that time.
Yeah.
So that was cool, going from playing in, 35-degree humidity and then going up to the States and playing in the snow, basically. It was pretty cool experience. And most of my teammates hadn't seen the snow before. So, as much as, it's a high performance environment, it's pretty cool because then you get to see a lot of people having new experiences that they probably wouldn't have had because of rugby. And then, we finished off that season, didn't do too well. We only won, I think, 2 or 3 games. That was the World Cup year, so that was 2023. So we didn't have a lot of test matches that year. So I think all we had was, I believe, before the La Villa tournament in November, there was only 3 matches, and only 2 of them were test matches, and they were going to be against Paraguay or Colombia or something like that. And I thought, look, I don't really want to stay in Brazil and just train for 6 months and play 3 or 4 games. I'd rather go somewhere else and develop my rugby and keep playing games to keep getting better and different experiences. So I ended up getting a signing for a club in Ireland, Sligo. Not a very high division team, but I had loads of connections there. What teammate of mine from Cobras played over there, Irish fella, and our strength conditioning coach also came out of Sligo. And it seemed like a great place to go play rugby, enjoy it, and be more of a leader in the team and work on those skills. So I did that. Played the rest of the year up there until the end of December, and part of my deal over there was that I'd get to leave and play those test matches for Brazil against it was going to be the US first, and then whoever won those games will meet in the final. We ended up losing, and we played Canada in that second game, which I believe is the one you probably watched.
Yeah.
So that was how I came to play my my first test matches. It wasn't just out of the blue. It was something that was kind of worked on over a long period of time, and I had to kind of be patient and wait for my moment. But it was awesome. Like I came off I came off the bench for those 2 games. Wasn't expecting to start or anything like that straight away. We had some awesome locks in at the time. And it's just an amazing thing. But you always remember your first game because it's that sort of adrenaline that courses through your veins. No other game is like your first one. And when I came on, I just felt like I keep running and running and running the whole time. But then afterwards, when there's a water break, you're absolutely gassed. Yeah. You're like, okay, I need to calm down a little bit, But that's how my first cap came.
That's amazing. But that's proper tier 2, tier 3 rugby at how it sort of comes about. And so as we've got a few bits to sort of unravel here. So you started rugby really late by the sounds of it. Obviously, I'm assuming Brazilian rugby for when you grew up for the first 13 years wasn't really a thing, or wasn't as well publicised, wasn't something on your radar potentially. But you said you didn't start properly till you're 23.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So growing up in Brazil, obviously there was very other than in the main city of São Paulo, there aren't any like clubs that were readily accessible for me back then. My dad's a massive rugby supporter, obviously. Yeah. We used to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and watch, the Super Rugby matches.
Nice.
He was a Hurricanes fan at the time, and I was supporting the Crusaders because I like Dan Carter and Richie McCaw or something. So
can't blame you for that.
We'd wake up, watch those games. Wake up, watch those games and whatnot. And that's kind of how that was my first interaction with rugby. That's how I kind of developed an affinity to it. But because there was no rugby available, I took up football. And to be fair, I love football. I was mad about it at the time. Brazilian culture is absolutely crazy.
That must be unreal really difficult. Grow up playing football in Brazil. Like I love football as well. I've got my team back in England and stuff. And I grew up watching that era of the Premier League with Henry and like you got the Pirlo. I grew up watching Italian football in that sort of sense. But to be able to grow up in Brazil to do that, you must be probably the best sort of second row player with the best feet possibly. You lining yourself up to take any kicks as well? Is the 10 trying to keep you away or?
I'll get to that story actually, but actually it's funny enough, when I first started playing, I did end up taking the kicks for my development team back home. So when I first started, like the first few games I played were in development, and then our fullback, he was the kicker at the time, and he kept getting groin injuries, and we didn't really have anyone else who could kick. And they saw me mucking around at training, taking kicks, just putting it like close to the 50 and stuff and getting it in. And they're like, oh, what? This is crazy. So when the moment came in the match, I was like, I just put my hand up. I was like, look, I can take the kicks you guys want, and so I ended up taking the kicks, the conversions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I remember there was one game I got a little bit full of myself with the kicks. I took one kick, like, how Dan Carter did. He took it with his wrong foot in the World Cup final.
Yeah.
I did that once in one of the games. I took it with my left foot. I'm right-footed. And then there was one we scored right under the posts, and it was towards the end of full time. Ended up taking the ball all the way back to the 50 and absolutely missed it. I got so much crap for it after the game. But yeah, that's the story of my kicking career. But after that, when I came to Cobras, I never got to kick again because all the boys can kick here as well. They all have footballing backgrounds and stuff like that. So then my influence in the kicking game went down a little bit. But yeah, in terms of like you were saying, in terms of footwork and developing those skills, I was very, very lucky to have played multiple sports growing up. I played football, I played cricket, I played basketball, tennis. A very, I suppose, diverse range, diverse skill set that I was able to accumulate over time. And that definitely helped with the transition to rugby so late on. The only thing that was different to me in rugby was the physical side of it, the tackling.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if I was going to enjoy it because of that. And so going into my first game, I was like, well, I'm either going to love this or I'm going to hate it. So I went into the first one and just like, I remember actually my first tackle, like it was a kickoff and we were chasing the ball, and then it got straight to the guy in front of me. And I was like, holy crap, I'm just going to like absolutely gas it straight towards him and try to just hit him as hard as I can. I hope I don't get hit. So I did that and ended up nailing him. And I was like, oh, this is actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
Just closed my eyes in the tackle and got him down. And yeah, that's kind of how the spark for it kind of, got lit. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
But as you said, you kind of started for the social aspect of rugby, which we all know and love. Then one Facebook message suddenly becomes an international passion career. Look, obviously you must have naturally had enough of an ability within rugby to sort of take that transition. How does it go from one Facebook message playing social rugby to playing in an international side with the Cobras as well? Obviously, Super Rugby Americas, for those that aren't aware, I'm a big advocate for it. I cover it for ATR as well, and they've got some exceptional players down there, and obviously it's a growing base as well. It's getting bigger. Obviously, they just added the 8th franchise, etc. So to go from that one Facebook message to where you are now, how's that development transitioned? How have you had to change from I'm going for a few beers to actually I've got to take this seriously? Like, were you able to do that with your job role, etc.? Was it just a case of you were able to flick the switch, or how did that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I always had a desire to play sport at a highest level. So like whether that was football at one stage, and then after that came to an end, I was always looking for something else to fill that void. And then came rugby. And the idea, like you said before, like it was just to go out for a few pints with the boys, have a good time, expand my social skills a little bit. I was a little bit awkward before rugby, so that was another benefit of it.
Brilliant.
And and then when that opportunity, well, I guess my first year of rugby was a bit of we lost a lot of games. And then the second year, I saw the power of how high performance cultures work and how a really tight knit group working towards a goal, a shared cause, can really transform a team's fortunes, and with the luck of a couple of good players as well. But we focus on the culture side.
Yeah.
And in the second year, we ended up going from last to first place within a year, and that kind of transformed my sort of attitude towards playing rugby, going from just taking the piss on the weekend, having a bit of fun, to actually like training hard, going after it and realizing, oh, maybe I do have a future in this sport. So I was, I think halfway through that stage, I was keen on getting into the Bay of Plenty Steamers, one of the NPC teams in New Zealand. And then at the same time, that opportunity with Brazil came up. So I was tossing and turning, do I try to stay here and, get a shot at NPC, or do I go back to Brazil and try to forge a different sort of pathway? And I decided to go for Brazil a lot because I had that desire to go back to Brazil and also be a full-time rugby player and really test my limits as an athlete. And also there was the uncertainty of whether I would have been an NPC or not. So that opportunity to go to Brazil would have passed by. So I decided to go to Brazil, and it was a great decision. Like, I got so much game time in my first year, traveling around to different countries and stuff. And regarding your comment about, the different mindsets, like, I think that achieving that childhood sort of dream, of being able to live and breathe sport and just test yourself to the limits every day, it really didn't make a difference. It didn't change. It didn't make it too hard to transition into it, because I really enjoyed it. But the thing is, with rugby, pre-season in the heat and 35 degrees, it really changes your perspective sometimes. It's really like, not every day I'm going to enjoy this. There's going to be times that I absolutely hate it, but you just got to keep pushing through, and it'll build character, mental resilience, and all those attributes that come along with playing rugby and prepare you well for matches. So I really gained an appreciation for it. And I remember thinking that for my first preseason in Brazil, I was like, oh, this is not enjoyable. Maybe this isn't for me, and stuff. All those doubts come into your head and stuff. But then I remember, like with anything, it takes a bit of time to, adapt to the regime and pick up those habits. And I remember, the following year when I came back, I was a lot more prepared. I was a lot more, mentally ready for those challenges to come up, and I wasn't caught by surprise.
Yeah.
And I took a lot better care of my body in terms of nutrition, recovery, all that sort of stuff. And it's something that's going to serve really well for other things in life as well, I think.
100%. Obviously, you've also experienced New Zealand rugby culture, Brazilian rugby culture, and obviously dabbled over in Ireland for a bit as well. What's the key differences between all of them? What did you find stood out? As you said, obviously, you've gone to Brazil, there's budgetary issues. New Zealand's probably a little bit, they've got budgets, but they probably play a different way. How did the culture sort of fit between the three when you sort of got involved in all of them?
Yeah, it's culture. Culture is definitely one that stands out. Two very, very different rugby cultures. I think in New Zealand, from my perspective, it's a very positive culture. Everyone's got each other's backs. It's very, like everyone's tight knit. You're all mates with each other off the pitch as well, kind of a thing. It's okay to have a beer after training or something like that. Not too often, but you pick your moments, and there's a lot more team bonding. And I think the coaching staff and the management, buy into that process as well of enjoyment, of having fun on the field and off the field as well.
Yeah.
And they know that connects the team more. And I think we're really good at instilling values in the team towards achieving a shared goal. I think that's a big thing. So we're all, pushing towards the same thing. And we also are not afraid to, put responsibility on each other to achieve certain standards, right? And New Zealand does really well with setting the standard and driving those things. And that always comes from leadership and from the top. And obviously in New Zealand, I think apart from the culture side, there's the skill set side. I think just in terms of catch pass, basic skills, New Zealand's really far ahead of Brazil and most South American countries in that case. Most places in the world, obviously.
Well, most Kiwis are born with a ball in their hand from literally they come out the womb and then it's sort of there, isn't it? It's pretty much they're born with a footy in their hand to make sure that they can throw, catch and pass straight away. That's
exactly. And I think it's also that thing in New Zealand which builds that culture going into high performance sport. Is also, you have a rugby ball to play with during lunchtime, during after school activities. If you're not playing full contact rugby, you're playing touch. And touch is all about getting the ball moving, getting into space, looking up. and using your footwork. And it builds all sorts of different skill sets. Whereas in Brazil, there was never that. A lot of the boys, they started playing rugby when they were 15 or, closer to 18 or something like that. And they went straight into a high performance center.
Wow.
And they got straight into the pathways, because obviously it's not a big pool. So as soon as you see someone with some sort of athletic skill, you're going to put them in the pathway and try to develop that skill afterwards.
Yeah.
But they miss out on all that fun and all that unorganized sport development, which is hugely important for building, those skills that you can't really teach.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to teach you in practice how to goose step. No one's going to do those. Those are things that were built off the field outside of coaching, and Brazil just hasn't had that opportunity yet. The sport hasn't been, mainstream long enough for it to have that effect. So coming back to the culture side in Brazil, I found that Brazilians, it's a difficult thing to speak about, because Brazilians are so much fun off the field, like love to have fun, love to do, have positive vibes and stuff like that. But once you're on the field and things kind of go down, people's heads drop. There's some negativity, there's blaming on other people at times, so that's something that I've noticed personally from when I came in. And it's something that we're working really hard on to face and try to make better. And I think a really big part of that is getting a psychologist or a performance coach involved, which could change that sort of environment. And getting those kind of people involved is going to make a huge difference in the future. But yeah, in terms of the culture within the group, we're all very tight knit and very very happy people, and very supportive of each other. It's just when the pressure gets put on us, some people just don't know how to deal with it. And you've probably seen that in some of our results. We've been leading for most of the game, or we've come back and we're leading, and then all of a sudden, like, something happens and the floodgates open. So one of those things.
I think that's probably come from, as you said, though, going straight from nothing to a high performance. There is no middle ground, and obviously that Brazilians are so passionate as well. They it's the same as any South American. Talk with their hands a lot, don't we? And like very vocal about their opinions and very. But I think probably the standout performance to show that is turning was that Belgium game in the World Cup qualifiers. Yeah. Obviously, that could have easily gone flip reverse. Obviously, Belgium were running away with it. The crazy red card, then the comeback, that whole mixture could have easily gone completely against Brazil in any other fixture. But I think that is on the turn. Is that something you guys have been working on a lot to try and not drop? Because it can. I love watching Brazilian rugby, because when it's on, and when it's off, it's lights off, and it's like there is.
It's entertaining either way.
It's brilliant.
It's definitely something we're working on. It's a mindset is definitely our biggest sort of Achilles heel. It has been for the last few years anyway. We lost to Paraguay in the playoffs for the South America, when we thought we were going to just walk over them. And there was already chat about who we're going to get the World Cup qualifiers in Dubai and stuff. So we got way too ahead of ourselves. And then when we got stunned by Paraguay, it was kind of like a shock to the system. And that first game that we played in Paraguay, there was people walking all over the place. Like, you could just see everyone, even though we were down by, 7 points at one stage, everyone thought, we're still gonna walk over them. And no one really took the ownership of that game to stand up and lead the team in that way. It was extremely hot. It was difficult conditions, but they were running, so we could have run as well,
Yeah.
And so the whole focus over the next few games, especially going to that second Paraguay game, was just run as much as you can. Like, we got a bollocking from Josh at the end of that match about not running. Our S&C coach was showing us all the stats and stuff like that. And guys who usually are off the charts in terms of meters, high speed meters as well, they were down like with the props kind of thing, and it wasn't, it wasn't too pretty. And so the whole message going into the next week was just run more, work rate. And it showed when we came to Dubai. That was also the focus, and it was already ingrained in us. And we're able to, put in a lot better performances. I think it also helps that we got our players back from overseas. The one thing that tier 2 and tier 3 teams struggle is to get their best team out. every match. And yeah, we were with that Paraguay game. We didn't have our best players back. Not saying that would have made a difference in the results, but for the Dubai matches, we had most of them back, bar a couple of players. And you could see that we just looked a bit a different team out there, with a different mentality, especially when you get a couple of, Pro D2 players who have top 14 experience. You get a lockback who's got exceptional leadership in Italy, is 15-year pro, so those things make a huge difference, not just to the performances, but to the team environment as well. And that contributes to culture and to the mentality of the team. So yeah, there's been a huge focus on our mental side of things. There's a lot of work to be done. We've acknowledged it, and I think the first step to changing those behaviours is knowing that it needs to be done.
Was the gaffer departed just before the first Paraguay game as well? So there was probably a lot of issues there. Was obviously as you're part of the setup, I'm sure you can't probably say too much, but was that a bit of a shock, or was that an expectation that happened, or how did that all come about as well? And then next thing you go into Paraguay to already think that you've won that to get into Dubai. How did that all sort of fold around the situation?
Yeah, it was definitely a shocking dismissal. Certainly the players didn't see it coming. And yeah, to do it just the 1 week before the match was it was tricky, obviously. Like, we weren't in a good spot. We hadn't won many games this year leading up to those Paraguay games. Yeah, it was just the timing of it that was a bit strange. If you're going to do something like that, you'd expect to do it potentially after Paraguay or a few months before, to have the ability to make those changes that you want to see. But I guess at the end of the day, the union saw that Josh could pick up the mantle, and he'd already coached us before, and they probably thought he could make a positive sort of change leading into those Paraguay games and potentially Dubai as well. So, hey, they made a pretty ballsy call, and hey, not sure I don't think it paid off, but I don't know if it would have been any better if the previous gaffer was there. That's hard to say, but yeah, I enjoyed my time with both of them, to be fair.
A week before that is a proper ballsy call. And then obviously the only saving grace was Paraguay can't do paperwork by the seams of it. So it's a big risk to run, that, isn't it? So that was just literally out of the blue. That was a federation decision. That was not player led. There was no external pressure for it to be happen. It was just one day. Next thing you know, you've got a new gaffer. You've got to go and make sure you get to World Cup.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of the situation, but yeah, for me, I remember I was walking. My dad was over in Brazil visiting, and I remember I was going out to meet him at a restaurant. And as I was walking over to the restaurant, I just get a text, saying that he's been sacked, and I was just like, oh my gosh, it's kind of just stopped there in the middle of the street, and I was like, holy crap, that's crazy.
That is mental. So obviously, you were playing at the Cobras. Are you still with the Cobras now? Because you're actually now in the UAE, aren't you? So we're obviously talking in a completely different time zone again. So you've been on the road again. What's the current plan of rugby for you at the minute?
Yeah, at the moment the slate's pretty clean at the moment. I'm in the UAE because my parents live here, so I'm just visiting them for Christmas.
Lovely.
And I haven't made any decisions yet on next year. I would like to keep playing rugby, but as you know, in the tier 3 and tier 2 side, the financial side of things isn't great. Like in Brazil, I'll give you an idea, we get 6-month contracts at a time. So there's no real, stability involved with it. You can get moved in and out of different apartments all the time, and you're not really sitting down some real roots. So yeah, I've decided that I'm not going to go back for Cobras next year. Not to say that I won't go back in the future, but at the moment I would just be considering my options, whether that's I continue, looking for full-time rugby opportunities, or finding work and playing amateur rugby just to stay in it. I'll always be involved in rugby. I love it.
Yeah.
So, whether that's, playing for the local club or finding opportunities overseas again, I'm not sure. I do have a partner now, so I need to think about her.
Yeah.
Can't just keep moving around the world every, a year or 6 months. That's a young man's game, and, I'm still young, but I'm not Like I'm not 21 or 22
I know
anymore.
what you mean.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so many different factors to consider, unfortunately, when you grow up. But yeah, I'm definitely looking to get stuck into a bit of work next year and find that balance between rugby and work and career, building a career.
So what is your target career outside of rugby? Because as we all know,
Yeah.
rugby players aren't going to be retired off most of their salaries, not all of them. So
No.
what's the one
Yeah.
thing outside that sort of does wake you up every day and think this is actually
Oh,
something I want to do?
yeah, that's a great question. I always thought it was to be involved in high performance sport. So when I went back for my second year in Brazil, I took up a job as well alongside my playing duties as a player development manager. So a lot to do with off-field player development.
Mhm.
So that whether that's educational side of the vocational side of things, or if it's targeting specific programs to keep players involved in rugby. So I had few different experiences in there, and then I realized during that moment how much all the ideas that I had really rely on funding. So alongside that, I also started working within the commercial sort of space.
Nice.
So within sports partnerships, finding different revenue streams to bring in money for the union, and I really enjoyed it, to be honest. And I did that role for about 2 years with them, and that's kind of the area I want to stay in. So either sports management or sports commercial partnerships. That's the area I'm really passionate about, and I really want to stay in and develop a career in. So yeah, it's one of those jobs as well that is really relevant to rugby, because in rugby, you
Yeah.
become a bit of a social animal. You're building connections with everyone. It's and that's what sports partnerships are about. It's building connections
Yeah.
and finding a way to work together, and that's in a mutually beneficial way. So that's what I really want to do, and that's what I enjoy doing.
Lovely. Obviously, so you sort of did that for 2 years for Brazil, as you said. When you sort of took that on, how, what's the biggest red flag for you with trying to raise commercial awareness and funding within rugby? What's the what? We know it's difficult as it is, but
Yeah.
what's the one thing
Yeah.
that potentially holds the game back that we all love?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, well, from my point of view, with my experience with Brazil rugby, is that we really look at sports partnerships not as partnerships. We see them as sponsorships, so more as donations. So we're always, you're going to sponsors and you're asking for money, but you're not really saying what you have to offer in return.
Yeah.
And if we change that mindset from a sponsorship to a partnership, I really think it'll open up a lot of doors, especially at this level. I know that people probably think, oh, we're only attracting, a few thousand people of crowds for every game. We don't really have an audience for them that they can engage with. But Brazil Rugby have 84,000 social media followers. We're having the Sevens circuit next year in São Paulo.
Wow.
We're having a big event in September against the New Zealand team at some stage. I can't really tell you who it is just yet.
Nice.
Until it gets announced. But, we have some things coming up that will be really attractive for sponsors or partners to get involved with.
Yeah.
And I think we have a really compelling story, especially with our girls doing amazing things on the world stage. Our men's team obviously working towards trying to qualify for a World Cup. So there's some great opportunities for partners to get involved with and grow with us and find some alignment with our values. So yeah, I think it's really important that unions, not professional sports teams, I'm saying, but unions really need to invest more in their commercial side of things. Because if you're just relying on funding from, the governing bodies, from World Rugby, from the Olympic Committee, you're never really going to be able to compete at the highest level.
No.
You need to find a way to get a competitive advantage. And that's from going out on your own and trying to build up your brand and attract some awesome partners to buy into what you're trying to do.
Yeah, awesome. I've had the pleasure of seeing the Brazil women's as well over here in Spain against the Leonas, and
Exciting, eh?
Oh, unreal. Again, like I was just stood there and I was like, they don't half run and they just go forward. Everything's going forward, and managed to chat with Larissa Henwood after the game.
Yeah.
Lovely, great player as well, exceptional player, and yeah, they're a very exciting side to watch and to see how they develop within women's rugby as well. I can't wait to see that grow. Obviously, back to the drawing board for the men's team after the World Cup miss out. What's the the new gaffer, is he now been confirmed the new gaffer? Is he the long-term one, or have they got bigger plans? What's Brazil rugby looking like going forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. I can't say too much because it's more speculation, and I don't know exactly what's been done at the moment. But I know that there's a few opportunities to build relationships with other unions around the world to be able to, import some players to really up the level in Cobras, because we keep finishing last in that competition, and it's not a great look for the Brazilian public who love to see their sports teams winning.
Yeah.
So if we can attract, a few, pretty world class players, but maybe players that have a lot of experience, great leadership skills, and have been there and done that to the Cobras, it'll certainly add value to our team.
Yeah.
We've had Argentinians obviously come over every year. We have about 4 or 5 that join the team.
Yeah.
And they're brilliant players, but a lot of them are either trying to, it's their first time playing in Super Rugby Americas, and they're just trying to, impress to get back into the Argentinian system.
Yeah.
Or it's players that are towards the end of their career and they're looking just to come over for a little bit of a holiday, and fair play to them because they have a great time. But in terms of development and the best thing for Brazilian rugby, we need those guys who, are really passionate about rugby, who really want to help Brazil rugby develop at the same time.
Yeah.
And it could even be players that are looking for, a player and coaching sort of opportunity where they get something out of it as well, So yeah, I think there's lots of opportunities that's been presented, and now it's just whether we can kind of capitalize on that. I just hope it doesn't come down to money, to be honest, because when it comes down to money, it just sucks, mate.
Yeah,
sucks.
That's rugby. That's how rugby seems to think, rather than in other mindsets. Because now that obviously the Capybaras have now been added as well, so that's a 4th Argentinian franchise.
Yeah, so I think I'll just comment on that quickly. I think that's huge because the one thing that Brazil struggles with is having a proper domestic competition. We do have one, but the standard isn't very high. So that your guys that you pick up from those comps to come up to Cobras, it's a massive jump.
Yeah.
Like it's going from NPC to the All Blacks kind of sort of standard. Not comparing us, but yeah. And so it makes it really difficult for those guys to gain confidence, because they're going in from a competition that they're dominating to a team where they're not getting that much game time. And then when they do, they're thrust into the deep end and expected to perform straight away. And they lose a lot of confidence because of that. So getting an extra 2 games in the Super Rugby Americas competition is another 2 opportunities for guys to get that experience. So 14 games instead of 12 is massive for us. And just going back to the other thing that we spoke about next year, what we're going to add in, I know that we're adding in so going back to the mental skill side and psychology, we're getting in a very experienced performance coach in terms of sports psychology, who's going to be working with the team next year. So I'm really excited to see. I really believe that that's the link sort of key for the boys. Yeah, the missing link, exactly. And he'll be in working with the boys, in different periods throughout the year. And I think it'll make a massive difference, mate.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'll obviously be covering the Super Rugby Americas because it's
awesome.
Probably the best league outside of the top 14 alongside other bits. But I think it's just so exciting. Obviously, the MLR is in MLR mode, trying to play with six franchises. We've now got an additional franchise added onto the Super Rugby. It's probably the perfect blueprint outside of every other league at the minute, because the continued growth, player availability, player progression, players going up to bigger leagues, getting blooded in at international level, it literally is the perfect footprint. The only thing we're now missing is a World Cup in South America to bookend how that runs. And I think that'd be huge. It'd obviously have to probably be Argentina. It's not going to go anywhere else in South America, but
you could share it. You could share it around, but
you could
Argentina's your place to do it.
That's the heartland at the minute. Obviously, four franchises, a massive top 12 teams underneath that as well, and then you've got the amateur. We obviously cover a lot of it on the channel with one of our lads that's based in Argentina, and the coverage on it. He just interviewed Agustin Pichot. We've got Rodrigo Isgro lined up. Santi Carrera sort to come on, and I train with a lot of Argentinians here, and just to understand their passion for the game, and it's obviously it's starting to spread out, it's rippling out within South America as well, which is great to see. It's just funding, as we know, and World Rugby have gone and put a large amount of funding into America for the World Cup to make sure that doesn't collapse, and for clubs to go and play, and international sides to go and play in America rather than actually potentially solving the rest of the world. But that's governing bodies, isn't it? So that's that never changes.
That is the thing. And I guess the question is, obviously, if you can unlock America, you're going to unlock huge commercial value and a massive new audience. But the question is that even possible? You know, is it just too competitive over there? Will it work out? I don't know, to be honest. It's a big gamble. You talk about Brazil rugby having the courage to, you know, sack our coach a week before. Paraguay, it's very courageous bold from World Rugby as well to put all their chips in America. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it develops.
I still think they're looking at what they think NFL is and what they're never going to be able to replicate that. And a lot of comments and stuff, I've done a lot of articles, I do a lot of stuff around the MLR as well, and obviously the franchises collapsing, etc., etc. And a lot of comments from American fans is stop bringing people over that are on waiting for a payday, solve the college rugby and the path. And Americans want to watch Americans do well. They're not worried about Bowden Barrett retiring, coming over for his last five years or whatever on a stupid payday. They don't care about that. They want to see their own get better and better and better. And as we know, it's the same with Spain. It's the same with Brazil. It's the same with America. When they're at the top, given the opportunity to be top of the game, the ceiling knows no bounds. Like Brazilian football, all of these, obviously Spain, every sport they're in, when they get that opportunity, they will go to the top end. And we've also got to find a way of stopping that ceiling on rugby. And I know this is probably going to be another thing that I'll rant on about somewhere else, but the Nations Cup, obviously we've got the new Nations Cup to take over the Rugby Championship, etc. That's going to be back, not back. We've then got this half-assed attempt at a Tier 2 Nations Cup where apparently the whole environmental policy of World Rugby's been burnt in front of everyone because people can travel across the world to travel from Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, just because we want to play some extra games. Like, how does that, from you playing within Brazil, when you see stuff like that, the Pacific Nations Cup obviously being played in America, the commercial element, how does that even make it possible for nations like that to try and develop and aspire to that spot? Is that ever possible, do you think? Or
it's an interesting, it's a difficult question to answer, really. So, for example, with America, I think without the risk of stepping on toes and stuff like that, it hasn't really worked out commercially from what we've seen with teams folding and stuff like that. And I think they're starting to learn now that it's not about just simply bringing in good players from overseas and then capitalizing on that by winning games and whatnot. Like you said, Americans want to see Americans do well. So I believe that they've changed their regulations where you're only allowed to start 4 overseas players or something like that in a match.
I think,
not sure. Anyway, it's tightened up.
They've sorted that because obviously the reduced 6, they've worked out something. So and they're not the first country to do it though. That's the thing. It's who suddenly classed as American is also the upper one around.
There you go. 100%. But I think they're starting to learn. It's going to take time to build it up. They probably realize that it's going to be very difficult to achieve that commercial success straight away. Yeah. So it's something that they're going to have to develop long term. And I think the problem is, you know, when people go into the American market, they expect a return straight away, you know, whereas rugby is a little bit more difficult. You know, it's something that it takes time to build, get fans, engage with the community, get players as well, because if you don't have the full ecosystem around the rugby team, then it's never going to work out properly. So there's a lot of things that South America, have done differently to America, and that's all the teams over here. Their pathways towards the national team and improving our chances of getting to World Cups. Right, that's the whole idea behind Cobras, Yacarés from Paraguay, Salkinen from Chile, all made up of mostly their own players.
Yeah.
And then Argentina as well. They've got an abundant amount of players. And before the SLA competition, they only had Jaguars, right?
Yeah.
Jaguars who were in Super Rugby. And when that stopped, they needed another way to breed players. And then they came up with the SLA competition, and Jaguars were in it, and then they left, and then the Pampas came in for them, the Buenos Aires team. And so they had Pampas and Dogos up until 2 years ago, until last year. And then Tarucas came in from up in Tucumán in Argentina. Great part of the world, mate.
Yeah.
You got to go to there. And now they've got obviously the Capivaras. So they've gone from, having one team a few years ago to having 4 professional teams. So it opens up a huge amount of possibilities. And then the best players from these teams, they go overseas to Europe and they're playing against the best players in the world week in, week out, playing 30 professional matches a year rather than what it was 12.
Yeah.
So they have a massive pathway, and Argentina, it's going to be very difficult to beat them in that sort of sense, for Brazil anyway, because that's something that's been embedded in them for years and years and years, and they've built that infrastructure. They've got a solid domestic competition, solid fan base, and they have a differentiation to football, and so they've been able to capitalize on that, and they're doing very well. Like Argentina have always punched above their weight on the international stage, and they're a lot better team than people give them credit for. Whereas Brazil, we're probably 20 years behind that at least. We've only got one team. We don't really have a solid domestic competition, and our national team isn't quite performing just yet. So if we follow the Argentinian model, I'm sure that we'll be able to get players, getting big contracts overseas, and that'll come back and contribute to Brazil as well.
I think it makes it impossible for nations to get towards there because, again, it's another closed shop. Does that then stifle games? Does those opportunities for Brazil to go and play other options? I think it's going to be another way of stifling commercial opportunity by putting in a pretend bullshit made up nations model that is ring fenced for the select few again.
Yeah, I don't think the whole thing behind that, to be fair to World Rugby, I think it's to prepare these teams the best way possible for the World Cup. If it's the year before the World Cup next year, and they have limited amount of matches before they get onto the World Cup scene. And you're seeing with the World Cup draw that there's a lot of, there's some really weak pools, I suppose, or mismatches, I would say.
Yeah.
Like even if Brazil were there, we get smoked by pretty much every team. But to prepare these tier 2 teams, they need to be playing against good competition leading up to the World Cup. And if you're playing against tier 3 nations like Brazil, for example, they're not going to get the right development. So you need to give them teams that are on par with them, that they'll be able to compete with and keep getting better. So that they went, for example, with Hong Kong and Chile. So when they get to play Australia and New Zealand, they don't get absolutely pumped. It's going to probably happen anyway, but at least they'll be able to put in a performance that isn't, 100-0. It might be, 80-14 or something like that, or whatever. So, yeah, I don't know if it's the best for, the global game, but it's certainly going to help those teams who are in the World Cup, I think. And I think it's also, it refreshes the international fixtures as well, right? We're also used to touring teams coming over in the winter time in the Southern Hemisphere for 3 matches, and then we do the Northern Tour for the autumn series, and it's become a little bit stale, to be fair. So I think it's kind of good that we freshened it up a little bit.
I agree.
Not sure if it's the right way to do it.
No, exactly. Yeah. I think the idea is there. I think we just got to refine it. I think because there's the top tier nations, they're the ones that the tier 2s need to be exposing themselves to. Obviously, Spain managed to play against England Day and Ireland Day, got 2 different tests. I went to the Portugal-Ireland Day game as well. That was a completely different level again. That's the ones that the tier 2 nations need to be trying to expose themselves, rather than that tier 1 pocket being completely blocked off again. That's the it's kind of like we've done this to protect the commercial pocket at the top here,
Yeah.
and done this as a token gesture. That's how I see it, rather than saying actually they're going to play this, there's going to be this promotion, this relegated,
Yeah.
it's just right. You've qualified for the World Cup. Zimbabwe now managed to get 3 games in England. They'll probably get a little bit more of a commercial, but they're getting to play against the tier 2 nations that they're in the similar sort of sphere to, but they're not really going to be playing at the World Cup. So it's not a progression. It's just there should have been options to explore commercial and physical game options with the A teams. Like obviously got the Pumas 15s. What a team they are as well. To go and play someone like
play them.
Yeah, exactly. Like to go and play against like the Zimbabwe, that would have been a bigger test. England Day was a great test for Spain.
Yeah.
Ireland Day was a great test for Spain. They're the games that I think we now need to see, rather than Georgia saying, "Oh, we can go and join the Six Nations." It's not happening.
That's a great point. And you saw with Chile playing against Italy recently, they only lost by 15 points, was it? Over in
roughly,
they play in Italy.
Yeah.
But about 15 points, and that's a bloody good effort for Chile. Yeah. I think they hadn't played a match since qualifying.
It was the only game they played.
I think they only played.
It was the only game.
They only played their game. So they didn't have any prep or anything like that. And Italy I think it was their last game of the Nation Series. So maybe they didn't have their best team.
They did rotate,
but still bloody impressive though. 100%. And it shows that these tier 2 teams who are starting to get more appearances at the World Cup, they can compete at that level, especially if they have their best players available. And I agree with what you're saying about bringing more A teams to play against tier 2 teams. I think that would be fantastic. To be fair, you've got the All Blacks 15, England A, Ireland A. I'm sure you're never going to get a French A because the clubs won't release it.
No.
But for example, with Argentina 15, like we played them, and for me, they're always the hardest game of our international calendar.
Yeah.
Like, they're tougher than playing Samoa, in my opinion.
Yeah.
When we played them. So, there's a lot of, I think it's worth considering potentially adding them to more fixture lists around the world for sure. I think what World Rugby might be a little bit cautious of is, having too many A teams, and then all of a sudden, your 10 to 11, 10 to 20 rankings, they're not actually the number 10 to 20 in the world anymore. It's the A teams who are.
The thing was, though, the Spain games against those were not classed as ranking points. They weren't ranking games. Yeah. So
no, I know, 100%. But then there's that debate that you can have,
But there's no difference to Chile only playing one game this autumn international. So there's Tonga only played one because it couldn't financially make it work. So it's, do you sacrifice ranking points for experience? I would every day. As long as if you qualify for the World Cup, like the ranking points in the World Cup should not matter where you are. That's the draw. The draw's the draw. Like that's how we need to look at it. But Ben, I know you've got to jump on another call, mate, and it's been an absolute honour sitting here chatting with you, mate. And for those that obviously want to now keep an eye on your career, what's the plan? You still going to be playing for Brazil? You still weighing up your options? How are we going to be able to keep an eye on you?
Still weighing up the options. I haven't closed the door on playing for Brazil in the future for sure. I think this year like the next few months at least anyway, I won't be playing too much rugby. But after that, I should be hopefully back on the scene at some stage. I'm not a big social media person, so I wouldn't try and go find me on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. I'm on LinkedIn, so if anyone wants to connect there, I'm happy to. But if not that, just follow Cobras Brazil and follow Brazil Rugby, and then you might see me pop up in the next couple of years again.
Right, absolute honour, Ben. Really appreciate your time. For everyone that's enjoyed this podcast, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, all that sort of good jazz. We'll keep an eye on Ben for you as well if you can't find him on social media, because we've also struggled as always. But what a story, what a journey, and what a pleasure to talk to such a passionate rugby fan as well as playing at the highest level. For everyone that's enjoyed this podcast, make sure you share it everywhere you can, and thank you and goodbye.